It's a Jackalope Carnival! Jackalope Carnival!
Hello, and welcome to Jackalope Carnival, a podcast where we look at human belief through myth, history, the paranormal, and the downright odd. I'm Becca.
I'm Eric.
And we'll be your host through this sideshow of stories. It's good to be back. It's been a while.
It is good to be back. It has been a little bit of a layoff, and we really appreciate folks who stuck by us and have waited patiently for the next episode. Here we are with the brand new season.
And you might not know this, but we did start a few months ago a YouTube channel where we're having a little bit more bite-sized stories, about 10 minutes or less. So you can check us out at Jackalope Carnival on YouTube and watch us actually a different medium. They're mostly illustrated, so you're not going to see Eric or I on there quite yet. I don't actually have a camera for that.
It's like, actually, but the artwork is so good. Why would we have anything else? That's actually one of the drawing points. So Becca's a very talented visual artist, and she's been showing off her skills, and it looks amazing. So head on over, and take a look at it. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. It's the same kind of topics, the same subject matter, just in a different format. And hopefully we'll have some other things, too, coming down the pike. We've been threatening that for a while.
We're getting our stuff together, finally.
We are. And it's going to be pretty cool. So watch the space, folks. Thanks for sticking around.
Maybe we'll even, as far as the artwork, maybe I should invest in asking the spirits, invest some time in asking the spirits. Eric's going to actually tell us how it's done today because we're talking about automatism.
Actually, my favorite thing that I ran across while I was researching for this episode is, do you know what WikiHow is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. They have. There's WikiHows for everything, right? Like how to change your oil and, how to.
Yeah, but what you have to tell me, what is that? How to contact the spirits?
Yes. How to do automatic writing. It's there's a WikiHow for that. Yeah, there is.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So it's there if you want it. Did you ever do like the seance thing when you were a kid? Was that a thing that was in your friend group?
I think we did a feather stiff as a board. I don't know if anyone out there will remember that, where you would put your fingers under someone and you would try to levitate them.
Yes, we tried that too. And it was, I don't remember if anything actually happened, but
to be honest, I can't either.
Yeah. Huh. Well, that's a little odd. Maybe we should explore that someday.
Yeah.
But no, I was always, since I can ever remember, I've always been afraid of Ouija boards. And I think it's because of
I do remember this.
The family I grew up in, the church I grew up in, it's kind of like a thing, like don't play with Ouija boards. It's not okay. Which is funny because one of our earliest episodes, a couple years ago now, was on Ouija boards, but
it was.
Here we are. These are linked phenomena. The idea of the Ouija board, which was invented here in Baltimore, Maryland. The idea of channeling, that is the idea of allowing your body to become the conduit or channel for an intelligence from another place in reality, the spirit world, whatever realm you want to call it. All of that is connected to this idea of automatic writing. They're kind of the same sort of thing, just different modalities.
And before we get a bunch of emails saying the Ouija board's been around as a spirit board, we understand that. We mean the Parker, well, it wasn't Parker Brothers.
What became the Parker Brothers?
The game of the Ouija board.
Right. Yes. And actually, one of the things I wanted to talk about today, one of the earliest forms of this kind of channeled communication. And I'm going to try my best, although I apologize to all the Mandarin speakers out of there. Although I was coached. I have two close friends who are Mandarin speakers, and they were trying their best with me today to pronounce this correct because, if you know Mandarin, it's a tonal language. But Fu Ji, I think, is supposed to be the way it's pronounced. And that was a type of automatic writing that was used in China in the about 5th or 6th century Common Era. And it had a similar thing as like the Ouija board planchette, like that sort of like little table, but theirs had wheels on it. And in Fuji, it was moved around, and then the spirits would move the planchette with the help of the hands, it was believed. And then what was written, because there was like a brush attached to it, and the brush would write on the paper. Then the folks would then take the paper out and read it. And that was supposed to be a message from the spirit world.
It's quite complicated.
It was, but it was, it's one of the first forms of automatic writing that we can find. And it predates the Ouija board, of course, by centuries.
It's funny that you're saying automatic writing and then Ouija board because actually my mother taught me this and then she didn't want me to do it. But you can do with pencils using two people holding two pencils and the erasers touching. And you can ask simple yes, no questions. And if they cross, it's one thing. And if they open up, it's another. And I actually don't remember which was which. I suppose you could probably designate it. But you each hold two pencils, and if they cross, I guess it's no, and if they open up, it's yes.
And that's one of the explanations that was given for this kind of activity that we're talking about. I saw the word idea motor response, which is apparently a psychological, physiological response where the body makes movements that it is not consciously aware of.
Yes, but Eric, you're missing the joke. We did this with pencils. But we didn't write.
And I was also thinking, boy, your childhood was very different than mine.
Right?
But yeah.
Yeah, I think I just gave it away there.
Yep, there we have it.
So you know when your mom teaches you divination when you're in middle school?
Right. My mom was of a very different sort. Yeah, that idea motor, I think I'm saying it right. And I was actually looking for the word that I did not write down in my notes. So I'm winging it. Hey, listeners, if I'm saying that word wrong, can you correct me, please? Thank you. Much appreciated. But the idea that the body makes these kind of involuntary moments, I mean, that's not controversial. The thing that I have a problem with is the explanation for automatic writing. I'm going to put that whole writing off. See what I did there? Automatic writing to some kind of involuntary muscle movement. I'm going to put that in the Sandhill Crane file. Do you know what I mean by that?
I do know what you mean by that, but our listeners might not.
Every time you see something strange flying in the sky in North America, they say, oh, it's a Sandhill Crane. And it's like, even when it makes absolutely no sense. Because, for example, our friend the Mothman was sometimes dismissed as a Sandhill Crane. And we know that can't be the explanation because Mothman is thick. And Sandhill cranes have very thin legs.
Oh, that's the other thing I wanted to remember to tell people. About a few months ago, my friend Julie Elkins, who's an amazing banjo player, helped me to write a song about Mothman, and I'll be recording that eventually. I am not the singer in that duo, but she's insisting. So look forward to that too.
Did you write the lyrics?
I did write the lyrics and actually sing it, and I'm not the singer. That's what I'm saying.
So we can. Becca gets a little flirty with Mothman.
It's our long running joke. And actually, I know many of you that will be listening have been with us for the past 3 years, and I just wanted to take a minute to say thank you. We really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, our fans are fantastic. Folks have been sticking with us even through our break, and so yeah, thanks for sticking around. And we got surprises for you, hopefully, good ones. So
and I was thinking about them.
Yes.
Because I was thinking, as you were saying, the Sandhill Crane, I was like, yeah, there's people who absolutely know what you're talking about.
That's right. That's right. So getting back to that, my Sandhill Crane file, right. So I'm using that as shorthand for implausible explanations. Now, I'm not saying that there's not a materialistic or physical explanation for some of these phenomena. I'm just saying there's no need to pick one that is incredibly implausible just for the sake of having a physical explanation. I mean, if you just want to sit with the mystery, sit with the mystery. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Like, I mean, if you have a planchette and it's moving around a board. Okay, fair enough. But with automatic writing, it goes one step further because you have a pen in your hand and without conscious control, or so the practitioners of this practice say, they're not moving a planchette with a paintbrush on it where you can kind of get the idea that maybe your muscles are just moving in a way that you're not, conscious of. They're writing sentences. They're writing paragraphs. They're writing books.
They're painting paintings.
Right. And I can't believe that is just, like involuntary twitching, for example.
Well, I mean, the surrealists did automatism and they thought it was your subconscious.
Yes. And that I can buy. That's a different thing, right? That's more than my understanding, again, if I'm saying it wrong or if I'm mischaracterizing the phenomenon, that's your reason to get a hold of us and tell me, teach me better. But my understanding of ideomotor kind of phenomena is it's like just when you're twitching or moving. Like it's not like I accidentally put together a model car.
No, I don't think it's done that's how you're twitching. It's more like your subconscious takes over.
Now that I can buy, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but we're not quite I'm on a slight timeline here, and we're not yet to that place yet because
I'm going to be honest. Sometimes that's how I podcast.
Automatic podcasting.
That's this podcast, folks.
we're on autopilot as we speak. So we started off with Fuji, which is the Mandarin word for, the type of automatic writing that was used in the 5th century Common Era. But flash forward to, and you know where this is going, I feel like there should be a bingo card somewhere, like a Jackalope Carnival bingo card, because we're about to talk about theosophy. And I feel like every second. I
swear, though, it all goes back to, I'm like, okay, in the 1800s, and then in the 1800s.
And then comes, right, and here comes Helen Blavatsky, right? Like every single time. So here we are again. The Theosophists were really into this whole automatic writing thing. And they and their compatriots in the same type of kind of esoteric movements like Order of the Golden Dawn were all about this automatic writing thing. And in the 1800s, though, they weren't talking yet about subconscious or unconscious. That's going to come a little bit later. At this point, they're still talking about spirits in other realms. They're channeling what they think of as gods or entities or angels or spirits. I did leap over one really important historical example, and that is during the reign of Elizabeth I, her court astrologer, John Dee, used some form of automatic writing to channel what he thought of as the language of angels. But I think we're going to talk about that in more detail in a future episode. So I'm not going to talk about that too much now. I really want to go back to the 1800s. No, I mean, that's just a confession. I really just want to go back to the 1800s. But returning to the 1800s in this topic, right? I mean, these folks in these esoteric groups like Theosophy were doing automatic writing. They were channeling angels. They were channeling spirits. Some of them thought they were channeling gods. Infamously, right? Aleister Crowley thought he was channeling the god, I believe, Thoth. That would be the one I would think he would. God of magic and whatnot. But me and Aleister Crowley we're not acquainted like that. But I think that if I'm remembering correctly.
If you start automatic writing, you just might be.
Right. And see, that's another reason why I'm not doing it.
I have a wiki how now that'll tell you how to do it.
I have to admit that I am a little bit curious because the next person I'm going to talk about who was a member of the Golden Dawn, who did use automatic writing, or rather his wife used automatic writing, ended up becoming one of the most celebrated poets of his era. And we're talking about Yeats.
That checks.
Oh, absolutely. Right. Like no one is surprised by this one. The story though is kind of fun. I got some good stuff right here. W.B. Yeats, who was an Irish poet and a member of esoteric orders and a writer, of course. And in 1917, he gave up his life as a bachelor, which was part of his identity, after getting turned down by 2 women in rapid succession in his 50s. There's hope for me yet. And he went ahead and married Bertha Georgie Hyde-Lees, who went by Georgie.
Which is much easier for all of us. Georgie
it is.
Yates.
Yes. And he says that the name Georgie is unacceptable and he just calls her George. So he calls his wife George. And his wife is the one who's doing the automatic writing and the channeling. And what I found out was something pretty interesting. One of the books that is attributed to Yeats, he's literally just the secretary. He's literally just the pen to paper, because George is the one channeling the spirits that are giving Yeats the words. The book is appropriately called A Vision.
And so she's just sitting there talking. Is that automatic writing? I mean, that's mediumship right there.
That is mediumship. And there's a relationship between those two things, because this is not the only work that is considered to be a channeled work that happened like this. I'm going to mention 2 more in a second from the 20th century. They do automatic writing and channeling back and forth. My favorite was apparently one of the writers I was reading about this seemed a little skeptical of George's channeling abilities and said, strangely enough, George was channeling a spirit that really wanted Yeats to get over his ex-girlfriend.
I like that spirit.
Yeah, and this spirit also was giving helpful tips for being a better lover in bed too.
Uh,
So, um,
was giving hints about remembering his anniversary. Yeah.
right. The spirit really wants you to wash the dishes from now on. Can you please do that?
In the 1800s, more power to her, whatever worked.
Right. But so she's if you believe in channeling, then she's the medium. If you think this is a subconscious thing, then, it's George's subconscious that's writing at least some of Yeats's work. I mean, obviously Yeats himself did have chops as a poet too, but some of his stuff is coming from these channeling sessions, which they did a lot. Apparently they were doing like 4 to 5 sessions a week, and they were racking up like thousands of pages over time from these automatic writing sessions.
And, I'm surprised it wasn't more publicized by him.
I actually want to talk about that. And even though you can find it if you go looking for it, like, part of my searching is I was looking for like automatic writing Yeats, and that did turn up some things. And it turned up some pretty good sources too, actually. There's one, I'm reading an article right now, Emily Lundolf in 2018 talks about it. And there's actually a Guardian article mentioning it too. They're both pretty skeptical about the idea of channeling, and that's not surprising because these are considered pretty reputable sources. And channeling is something I think that in the 21st century.
Yeah, but in the 1800s, it was really mainstream.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not really mainstream, but it was pretty mainstream. I have been looking through the archives of the New York Times and the Scientific American, and Scientific American did a whole series, like 4 or 5 articles. Mm. So they went ahead and had someone undercover at seances and were describing it. And there were famous people at these seances. I did a lot of research recently on Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and we will be doing a podcast on him. But I didn't realize he hoped to be remembered for his work in spiritualism and not for writing Sherlock Holmes.
And he was involved in automatic writing as well.
Yeah, of course he was. He had his finger in all the pies.
So, but something happened in the 20th century, and not something, I mean, we could probably talk about it, but in the 20th century, people stopped talking so much about non-materialist explanations of phenomenon. I got the feeling,
for that time in the 90s where everybody was Wiccan.
Yeah, that's true. But I feel like even then, correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like even people who are talking about Wiccan publicly, it seemed more like an environmental religion than talking about like the magic with a K part of it.
Eric, you're asking someone whose mother taught them divination when they were 12.
Fair enough. Yeah, maybe I'm remembering. Maybe that was just like the people that the Wiccans that I knew personally, and maybe the larger movement was not quite like that. But I just feel like there was a lot of people writing about Yeats as a poet seriously. And in order to take him seriously, maybe they had to downplay the things that they would have found embarrassing. And by the time we get to the 20th century, channeling spirits and seances and Ouija boards are kind of, I guess, they seem embarrassing, at least to the people I'm reading, because everyone who talks in the 20th century it's almost like they're required to dismiss the phenomenon.
That makes sense though. Like, oh yeah, that was probably a party game. He wasn't serious about it, but right. These people were
super serious about it, or at least George was. For whatever, for her motivations, I'll leave that to you to interpret yourself, but there it is. I think it really is important to point out that even though Yeats has his name on this work of his, A Vision, that at the very least, we can call this a partnership. And it's not really a book that should have just his name on it. If I'm reading this right, at the very least, he should give some credit to George.
That's a whole nother
another episode, huh? Speaking of which, I think we're going to circle back around and talk about the surrealists. Or do you want to talk about them now? Because
circling back is absolutely fine.
Circling back is fine.
Some sort of weird surrealist circle.
Yeah, it's with a planchette.
It's a melting circle.
In the early 20th century, psychology starts being taken more seriously as...
Oh no, are you going to talk about Jung again? Because that's another Jackalope Carnival bingo card.
I wasn't going to, but you did. I was going to mention actually Jung's, one-time mentor and eventually enemy, Sigmund Freud. Since we're talking about not listening to women and taking them seriously, let's talk about Sigmund Freud. Yeah. So Sigmund Freud, of course, is all about the unconscious, right? Or the subconscious. Which one is he? I forget. I should look this up and tell you. But the idea that there is more to consciousness than whatever you're consciously aware of. That there are forces and ideas and motivations that lie below the liminal level. And the idea of automatic writing or the idea of automatic painting starts to get a psychological gloss to it. And it's the idea that you're not channeling spirits or angels, you're tapping into your unconscious. And it becomes a way to kind of interact with that. And in that way, it's almost like channeling or automatic writing never goes away. It just changes its explanation. It's no longer the language.
That's like mesmerism. That makes sense.
In the 20th century, right, we get a different take on the same phenomenon, but the phenomenon sticks around. People are still doing it. But I want to talk about two people who were really bucking the trend, though, because even though you have painters and surrealists who see this as a way to, and it's not just surrealist painters, by the way, it's also surrealist writers too.
Yes.
That they're seeing this automatic writing as a way to get into their subconscious or unconscious, because, the whole idea here is that you can't normally access that part of your mind. So in order to get at it, you have to get at it from a slightly sideways way, like maybe talking about your dreams or writing down your dreams. And this is just
like a koan.
It is. It is indeed. But there's a couple people that keep the channeling alive, and they're not even in any way, shape, or form buying into any of this psychology business, which is actually interesting because the first one we're going to talk about is A Course in Miracles, which was actually channeled by a clinical psychologist by the name of Helen Schucman. She was not in any way, by any sources that I found, she was not in any way related to any esoteric movements or occultism or anything. She was just a regular old psychologist. And she worked at Columbia Presbyterian Medical Center in New York City. And her and a colleague were trying to figure out a way to raise the vibes at work, because apparently the vibes were real bad.
Ice cream party?
Maybe, that method hadn't been invented yet. This is still the mid 20th century. So this is like the 1960s. Oh, that's just crazy talk. No. So instead, she begins relaxing and just like kind of letting things flow. And again, this is a time when the idea of unconsciousness or interacting with the unconscious mind was part of psychology. But what ends up happening is a voice that she associates very much with a spiritual being. And A Course in Miracles is what is produced out of this effort that wasn't in any way an attempt to contact a spirit or create a spiritual manual. Have you ever read A Course in Miracles? Are you familiar with it?
I think I've heard of it before, but I've never read it.
It's written from the point of view of a spiritual being. And if I'm not mistaken, I have a copy of it. It's sitting in my room right here. I'm looking at it.
Apparently it's from Jesus.
Yes, that's right. And Schucman, never actually signs on to being like 100% sure about that. But that is the point of view of the book itself. And I've read it.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because, well, I don't know. I mean, I guess it was Jesus.
Yeah. Seriously. No, but that's kind of the sense I'm getting from it. Is like, she's like, well, look what happened, like I just started writing and Jesus came out. And it's not
like Bob.
It is not. Although, hold on, I got the second person I'm going to talk about. The book is not standard Christian theology, though. And it's not really something that I think the typical neither Protestant nor Orthodox nor Catholic Christian would recognize as the kind of Christianity that they're entirely used to. Interestingly enough, it's been endorsed twice and has gotten a bump in sales twice. One was by Johnny Carson.
Okay.
Yep. And it sold a lot of copies then. But Eckhart Tolle, who is a late 20th century and now 21st century kind of new age speaker.
Yeah, you're kind of into him.
I like Eckhart Tolle a lot. And he quotes the Course in Miracles as well. And my own story about it, I have an interesting story about Course in Miracles, but I'm not going to tell it today. But I do own a copy.
You wrote a song about it. Want to hear?
I have a copy that I accidentally purloined. Let's just call it that. And
okay.
Yep. And we'll leave it there for now. And I'll tell that story later. But that's one. So the second one, around the exact same time, and apparently 1965 was a time for accidental channeling. Because
yeah, I wonder what could have been around that was helping people accidentally channel in the 60s.
Okay, Sandhill Crane. So around the same time in actually a couple of years before, 1963, a author by the name of Jane Roberts, who was a sci-fi author, started automatic writing. Now, she herself was someone who was a little more aware of some esoteric ideas, and she had played with a Ouija board and things like that, unlike Schuckman, who had, was just not of that world. And the Course in Miracles seemed to catch her completely off guard. But Jane Roberts began channeling a being called Seth.
Oh, I had heard of Seth. I've never read any of it, but that was something like I grew up hearing about. I feel like maybe my mom read those books or something.
That completely checks out. Yes.
Well, she listened, so she'll have to tell us.
She'll tell us. Yeah, I'm sure. The Seth material spawned a series of books, and they were wildly popular throughout the 60s. I mean, shoot, she started publishing the first book in the 60s, or excuse me, in 1970, the Seth material. And she would continue to publish Seth material well into the 1980s. So it had a good run. And apparently the whole time she has this relationship with a being called Seth. Seth was never human. He said that he had already kind of like lived his material life and was not going to reincarnate on Earth. But he talked about a wide variety of things. I watched a video where she was actually channeling Seth. They purported to be the only video recording of her doing so, where Jane Roberts is talking as Seth. And it's not theatrical. Like, she doesn't start speaking in like a wildly different voice or anything. But when she comes out of her trance, she says she has no knowledge of what Seth said. So apparently he channeled decades and decades of books that she was just completely unaware of. And again, we're not talking like, motions on a board or like a couple of like movements of a paintbrush. We're talking like chapters and chapters of writing.
Okay, so this reminds me of when I used to transcribe, because my favorite transcriptions were always from this woman who is a medium, and she channeled aliens.
Okay.
And, well, an alien being. And I'm not going to mention who she is, but part of the reason I loved it was because when she channeled the alien, and we're paid by the minute, she would speak so much more slowly. And it was like, oh, this is amazing. She's speaking clearly and slowly. And
well, the aliens were her friends, apparently. They wanted to see her do well.
I mean, it was her being. This is really making me think of and I know it's Ouija boards, it's not channeling, but it's making me think of those people in England in the 90s that were on a murder trial, and they decided to do a makeshift Ouija board on the jury. So the jury were using a Ouija board to contact the victim of the crime to see what the verdict should be.
I remember reading about that. That's wild.
Yeah. And they had to do a retrial. But the thing is it wasn't that they were channeling through the Ouija board that was the problem. It's that they were discussing it outside of court.
You're right.
Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, I'm just going to go ahead and throw Ouija boards into this mix, right? So Ouija boards, automatic writing, channeling, all that. The idea is that you are somehow getting in contact with a disembodied consciousness that is not your own, or an unconscious part of your own mind, depending on which explanation you care for, or a person is making things up, again, depending on which explanation that you want to explain. And to be fair, let me just say this. What if all three are possible? But depending on the situation we're talking about, we could be talking about any one of those three. I allow that. What do I know? But I want to talk about this last work. And this last work was by a band called the Mars Volta. Were you ever a fan of Mars Volta?
No.
They were a prolific band in the 90s and early 2000s, the aughts. I think they're still around. But they had a channeled record in 2008. And there seems to be some controversy as to whether or not the backstory is true or not. Some people who reviewed the record, I think, seem to write it off as like just a marketing ploy. But no less than NPR, who's reviewing the record, seems to take the backstory very seriously. And that is, some members of the band buy a Ouija board when they happen to be on tour in Jerusalem, and they start channeling a being they call Goliath. And the album is called Bedlam and Goliath. And apparently they got addicted to the Ouija board. They were using it a lot. They were using it to channel lyrics. But as they were using it and recording the album, a series of really like bizarre and odd events just kept happening around the studio. Like they would record a whole session and then the tapes would just be blank and there'd be nothing on it. Or like overnight, the studio, which had never flooded before in its entire existence, would suddenly be like literally underwater. And apparently they lost an engineer who is quoted as saying, quote, "I'm not going to help you make this record. You're trying to do something very bad with this record. You're trying to make me crazy, and you're trying to make people crazy." Quote. I listened to just a tiny bit of it, and it didn't make me any crazier, I don't think, than it already was. It's just not my cup of tea. Mars Volta is just not my kind of music. But you want to know an album that is a result of automatic, I guess writing's the wrong word, or I guess the lyrics were automatically written.
Yeah.
That is a bit more, I think, famous and has a wider listenership and is considered to be a classic of folk rock and to be this artist's magnum opus is Van Morrison's Astral Weeks. And he used automatic writing to produce both, I think, the lyrics and the music. I just listened to this album.
But it's the 60s, so that does not surprise anyone.
No. I don't think he makes any claim. I couldn't find any evidence that he made any claim that it was channeled by spirits or ghosts or angels or anything. I think he was firmly in the psychology camp of explanation, where he just thought he was getting in touch with like his collective consciousness in a very Jungian kind of way.
Okay, so let me ask you this though.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so you're talking about in the early 2000s, they were doing Ouija board.
Yes.
What about like Chat GPT? Like it's channeling for you.
Whoa.
Right?
Oh my gosh. So when they talk about the dangers of AI, maybe the dangers of AI isn't like the
ghost in the machine.
Oh my gosh. You know what? I think we're going to end this here. Folks, thank you for coming to listen to us one more time. Welcome back to our new season, and we really appreciate you.
Until we hear from y'all again. Wodo.
Jackalope Carnival!
And
married his wife.
Married his wife, and I'm looking for a name. He went ahead and married.
Sorry.
I know. Darn it. Where did I put that?
Eric, if you were just channeling this whole thing, you'd be fine. Why fight it?
Ready? Here we go.